So you're looking for a frame who you maybe haven't tried yet, that you're not sure is good, and you can't seem to get too much intel or word on whether a frame is actually worth using. Well, don't worry, today I've got, in my opinion, the top 5 most underrated Warframes in the game that I think you guys should be trying. Before we get into this, we need to talk about what an underrated Warframe actually is. Just being a less than effective Warframe or one that's maybe on the lower threshold of them doesn't really qualify them to being underrated. In my opinion, these are frames that have really strong kits that don't get enough usage, and maybe not enough people are vouching for them and how effective they are. So good kits but low pick rates. All the frames today that I'm showing I feel like I never see in my lobbies. Whenever I use them I can't help but feel they are extremely slept on. I'm going to try and rank them in order from least to most underrated, and I'll also give you a build for the Warframes along the way. Before we get into our top 5, I want to give a quick honourable mention to a Warframe that is definitely underrated, and that's Equinox. The reason why she didn't make the list is because I feel like the Equinox players and fan base, at least from my experience, are very vocal and quite prominent. I hear a lot about this frame, plenty of people vouch for her, and I do see her a decent amount at least in my servers, so she's very close to making the list, but in my opinion just doesn't quite cut it. Okay, so coming in at our number 5 spot, we have a frame that, in my opinion, I don't think anybody is using, even though they really should be. Probably the strongest Warframe on this list, well, maybe debatably, but she's definitely up there. Zeph has been just slept on for so long now, and I don't understand why. This Warframe got reworked a while back, and has only gotten stronger since, and in my opinion is a complete S tier Warframe, but I still just don't see anyone using her at all. She has some of the best survivability in the game. The only stuff that can really hurt her is maybe like Xmas AoEs, bombard rockets and melee, but melee weapons are just never going to hit you, and bombard rockets are easy to deflect depending on the range on your build. Massive crit buffs for your weapons, insane mobility and speed for in and out of open world, grouping and damage spreading, flying around in your first ability to get that crit bonus, being basically invincible, grouping enemies with your 4 and then having all of your damage spread between the tornadoes. And you can group enemies with your 2, but I prefer to subsume it off and synergize it with Breach Surge, making your damage even higher. Zeph is an insane weapons platform that has perfect synergy between weaponry and abilities, and she is both, in my opinion, easy and fun to play. Out of all the Warframes on the list today, I think this is the one that surprises me the most with how insane they are considering how low of a pick rate they seem to have. Something just doesn't make sense here. I don't know, maybe the word just hasn't gotten out far enough yet, but in 2024 you should definitely own a Zeph. The next frame on our list makes a little bit more sense as to why they're in their current position. This frame is of course Garuda, and Garuda has had a bit of a rough history. I'd say at least over the first year of this frame's release, she received patch after patch for all of the bugs that she contained with her kit, as well as quality of life updates, buffs and such. She wasn't great when she first came out. I'm not sure whether this history has stuck with players and maybe messed with the perception of the Warframe, kinda like how Limbo used to be the absolute worst troll character in the game. But where Garuda sits right now, I can't believe she is still such a low pick rate Warframe. I never see anyone playing or talking about her. The sheer amount of damage you can output with her orbs combined with her 4, the easy sustainability with her 3, she doesn't even really need a helmet if you want. So the only thing that Garuda 100% requires is casting speed. The speed in which she can output massive amounts of damage and the range she has as well when you build her correctly. You can see by the gameplay I'm easily nuking rooms, and this damage isn't going to fall off for a long time because I can do insane amounts of bleed procs, and the damage of those ticks is going to scale based on enemies' health when I am jumping at them, and of course the damage they're doing directly towards my shield. And with this active playstyle as well, I can also shield gate effectively. She gives Ashe a run for his money in terms of who's the best slash based Warframe. In terms of the build that I like to rock, she is of course a caster frame, but she does have a good selection of augments which you can be versatile with, and you could argue that maybe she's lacking a little bit of team support, only really offering health regen from her pillars and then bonus slash damage on enemies core in her 4. I just think there's too much to like about this Warframe for people not to be playing her, and once you get the hang of her kit, be amazed at what kind of enemies she can deal with. In our number 3 spot we have Elly. Elly probably would have been ranked number 1 most underrated, but she has been getting a lot more love lately, specifically from the player base. As more and more people have put out builds and videos on Elly, the more her kit has sort of come to light. People are just now realising that, wait a minute, she is actually one of the best weapon platform Warframes in the game, specifically for your secondaries. I understand that maybe not everyone would really enjoy the fact that she has to use the K drive unless you got an augment, but the fact that augment is there in case you don't want to bump your head into things, there's a playstyle available for both sides. For me personally, I actually like the K drive. I don't find the handling too bad. It's a little bit tricky in tight corners, but the speed you get, the buffs that you can get with the augments, the way it synergizes with her passive. What Elly's playstyle really is a fast moving tank with insane grouping and debuff tools, sort of plucking out enemy groups that you pass by with your ult, and just drive by one-shotting them with your insane secondary damage. And her augments are fantastic across the board. I don't think she has a single bad one. You can even make Surging Blades work, not to mention it's also a good helmet. I will admit, I only started enjoying her recently because she got some better fashion frame, but outside of that, I absolutely love this Warframes kit, one of my favourites right now. And she's also pretty versatile when it comes to helmet choices as well. Her base kit performs just fine, but if you replace something like Surging Blades with Gloom, you can stay on your K drive and heal it whilst you're killing enemies inside Gloom's radius. And of course enemies are slowed down, and because you're moving so quickly, every enemy you come across is going to be in that slow. Combine that with your insane damage reduction, her extremely high iframes that she gets from recasting her too. The grouping from her 4 is absolutely fantastic. And then if we want to talk about her C snares, this ability is one of the most insane debuffs in the game. I actually can't believe that people don't talk about it. I swear it puts every enemy you face 1 HP. Like they just become one shot to all your guns, paper mache enemies everywhere, and it's got good CC. Elly is a beast of a Warframe. I really hope you guys pick her up, because if you haven't tried her, you are missing out. Now these last 2 frames are not only underrated, but also overhated. I feel most of the stuff that people say about Vauban is that he's actually god-awful. And I'm sorry, but I feel like this Warframe purely exists to make shit and lazy players look bad. Of course, the frame requires a good build, just like anyone else, but it also requires an active playstyle. Vauban is a serious problem. Not broken, but also infinite scaling damage, easy shield gate Warframe, crazy CC, multiple playstyles to go with, just because he's classed as somewhat of a CC engineer type of Warframe, which most people just immediately think, oh, he's outdated then. Bro, this Warframe got reworked ages ago and he's so good right now. The first ability has one of the best augments in the game and also works well with Archon Stretch, allowing you to spread your damage across enemies, and that also synergizes really well with armor stripping, which he has in his 4th ability. His 4th ability also having 2 ways to CC and lock down rooms, and Bastille will strip enemies extremely quick. The 2nd ability has 2 very good versions, Overdrive and Flechette Orb. Flechette Orb having infinite scaling damage, and also synergizing not only with the armor strip from your Bastille, but also the augment with your 1st ability. This thing absolutely shreds hordes of enemies, and it does not give a fuck about the enemy level. It's literally mini aimbot turrets, bro. And there's even some nutty builds that you can do around your 3rd ability. I would highly recommend you guys go check out Professor Disto's Vauban videos. They feature all kinds of play styles and a very in-depth breakdown as to how to play him. This Warframe kicks ass. Is he the best in the game? No. Does he need to be? No. One of the most underrated? Yes. The playstyle you're really trying to go with him is mostly shield gating in my opinion, spamming your Bastilles everywhere to strip enemies armor, occasionally collapsing it into a vortex if you want to, throwing out your Flechette Orbs left, right, center. Occasionally you can use Overdriver as well. I like using Nourish over the 3 for better energy sustain so I can spam everything. And then of course throwing out my 1 for not only energy regen via Archon Stretch, but also to proc that enemy so that they spread the damage they take to anyone else nearby, and if they're caught within Bastille's armor strip, nothing's going to survive the combination. Vauban is overhated and underrated. And last but not least, the frame that I believe to be the most underrated in the game is Corvex. I actually do hear a lot about Corvex, but it's pretty much all negative. This frame is really slept on. He's one of the best tanks in the game, has a lot more damage than people give him credit for. Solid CC, recently got a very good augment as well. Sounds kind of basic at first, but when you realise that his kit has some nice synergies and actually makes him stronger, I think this Warframe becomes one of the easiest to play. He can easily lock down an area with his massive radiation spread. His grouping is decent, but admittedly I think there's better options, hence why I use Ensnare instead of his 2. But his 2 does have the augment which strips armor, so it's now way more useful. His 3 giving status immunity makes him one of the best tanks in the game. At first you're just thinking, oh, this ability's kind of sad, I wish it did more. But then you realise combining status immunity with the highest base armor value of any Warframe in the game makes you functionally unkillable for most content that isn't going to level cap. I can just shut my brain off and focus on doing damage. And doing damage I do with the combination of my 4 and my 1. The 4 is okay on its own, but when you hit your first ability, the towers, with your 4 and there's enemies in the area as well, it will chain the explosions further, meaning that they go on for longer and more enemies will perish. There's not many things more satisfying in this game than just sending a beam down a corridor where one of your pillars is and watching the damage spread to the other room. And I don't have a worry in the world whilst I'm doing this because I'm so tanky. Do I think he could get a little bit of a buff? Sure. He could do with a few tweaks. But as he is right now, I think he's completely slept on, and people saying he's bad is kind of ridiculous. He's perfect for tight and closed tile sets, strong defensive Warframe, slept on damage potential, and considering that he's actually relatively new, that means that he could have more better augments and buffs waiting for him in the future, so for him to be as good as he is right now is a good sign. His playstyle is really simple as well, easy to learn. Run around, keep your 3 active, place your 2 pillars in areas where enemies are funneling into, and then group up enemies with your second ability. In the gameplay, like I said, I'm using Ensnare, which I can pull enemies in and then make the use of the combination of my 1 and my 4, kind of just pulling enemies into my irradiated area. Chernobyl Warframe got me bricked. And that'll do it. That's my 5 picks for the most underrated Warframes in the game. If you haven't tried any of these Warframes, please consider giving them a go. I promise the game becomes way more enjoyable when you start using different characters, especially ones that are often overlooked or overshadowed despite being very good. Let me know which one of these Warframes is your favourite within the comment section, and also tell me what top 5s or top 10s I should do next. Always looking for feedback on the channel, video ideas, build ideas even, stuff to keep you guys actively involved with what I do. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to sub, helps me out greatly and it's completely free. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.